In this video, I'm going to show you how to build an assistive hand exoskeleton to assist with grasp strength. This device was designed specifically for people with cervical spinal cord injuries that have lost strength and functionality in their hands. However, any patient that suffers from weak hands may benefit from this device. This device was intended to be built at home using affordable and easily accessible materials. There is more information in the description regarding other resources that I've created to help explain how to build the device. I've organized the video into 3 major sections in order to make the building process as seamless as possible. This is the mitten section, the mechanical section, and the electrical section of the device. Before we begin, I want to show a screenshot of the document linked in the description that lists all the different materials that we're going to use. I've included the cost of each component, what major stores you can likely find each part at, or where to get it online. I'm going to talk in depth about each component, what it's used for, and why I've chosen this particular item as I build the device. So before you go out and buy anything, it might make sense to watch the rest of the video to get a sense of what you're looking for. Alright, let's get started. In this section, I'm going to show you how to make the mitten part of the device, as shown here. For this section, you're going to need scissors, a pencil or pen, paper, scotch tape, sewing supplies like a needle and thread, fishing line, sew-on snaps, Velcro, some kind of leather or faux leather. It can come from a bag or purse, and the inner lining of a lunchbox, that's slick material here. In order to do this, we're going to make a paper template of the mitten, as I'm showing right here. You're going to start off by measuring from the tip of your middle finger to the bottom of your wrist. Mark that using your thumbnail, and then make that indent a little darker using a pen. Label this strip length. Then what you're going to do is trim off the very end so that it's easier to work with later. And then you're going to repeat this with other measurements of your hand. Next, you're going to measure from the base of your thumb all the way around the back side of your hand to the palm on the other side. Again, make that indent, mark it, and then label this one as width. Measure the width of your middle finger and pointer finger in the middle, and label this mid MP. Then measure the upper portion of your middle and pointer finger and label this up MP. Measure the lower portion of your pinky and ring finger and label this lower RP. Measure from the tip of your pinky finger to the middle of your ring finger. Mark it in the same way. Label this one as diagonal. Measure from the webbed part of the thumb down the back of the hand to the upper part of the wrist joint. Label this one as thumb lower. Draw a line from the webbed part of the thumb to the lowest thumb joint. Measure the length from the tip of the thumb down the back of the thumb to that line. Label this piece as thumb length. Now measure the width of the upper segment of the thumb. It can be a little tricky. And label this as thumb upper. Now measure the width of the middle segment of the thumb and label this as thumb middle. Now measure directly across the palm from the webbed part of the thumb to the other side of the hand. Label this one as palm. To start the paper template, we're going to make a rectangle that is the size of our length and width strips. After we've cut this out, we can fold it in half to find the halfway point. Then you can place your hand in the middle of the page and mark where the base point is between the ring and the middle finger. Use your pointer finger as a guide and outline it. Now you can use some scissors and cut along this line. Round out the edges as shown. Mark where your thumb starts and stops. Now draw an arc in between these two lines where the highest point is about 3 centimeters away from the edge of the page, in the middle of those two lines. Cut out this arc. Cut out thin strips using the lengths of upper MP and middle MP. Attach them using tape to the side of the piece of paper that has the thumb arc. Make sure that the upper is near the fingertips and the middle is slightly lower. Tape them there to give the mitten some shape. You can always adjust the placement. Cut out thin strips using the lengths of lower RP width and diagonal. Tape the lower RP width across the lower joint of the pinky and the ring finger. Tape diagonal from the tip of the pinky finger to the middle of the ring finger. Cut out a thin strip for thumb lower. Tape it around the arc as shown. Cut out a thick piece that is the length of the palm. We can see that it fits pretty well in that region. This part may take a little bit of trial and error. Cut this piece diagonally so that it goes across the palm, as I'm going to show you. If it doesn't work, try again. Draw this design on the back side. Then you're going to cut it out and tape it across the palm. If you are using a thumb brace, you can stop right here if your design fits. Cut out a rectangle with dimensions thumb lower and thumb length. Tape it onto the base of the hand as shown. Draw an arc onto this piece and cut it out. Tape the piece back onto the template. You can give it some curvature so that it fits better to your hand. put your hand in. Wrap the piece of paper around the bottom of the thumb and mark where the front of the thumb begins. Take it off and remark this point with a marker. Tape the piece of paper up to that mark that you just made. Put your hand back in and mark where the end of your thumb is. Then you're going to cut off that piece of paper straight across. Put your hand back in and mark where the front of your thumb starts. Fold the piece of paper back as shown. Cut along those fold lines. Cut strips for thumb middle and thumb upper. Then you're going to tape them onto the hand. Adjust the template until you're happy with the fit. Now you have to mark where each strap is placed. This is really important because otherwise you won't be able to properly use the pattern after you've cut it up. Cut up the mitten so that you can use it as a template for cutting the leather. One tricky part is that the lower thumb portion just needs to be peeled away from the rest of the thumb piece, as I'm going to show you. Now we're going to use an old purse and some good scissors to cut out the leather using your template. Sew at the joints just like you did with the tape. You can try it on. Bend the fingers and notice where the fabric bunches. Once you've identified those locations, cut away the material. Here I'm showing only a couple of locations, but make sure that you do it around the whole hand. Try the mitten on again. Adjust to correct for any excess fabric or poorly fitting areas. Here, I see that the fabric at the end of my finger is too long and does not fit the end of my hand, so I adjust it by cutting off this little piece and then sewing it back together. Afterwards, it fits better. Now I attach the wrist strap. You can add Velcro to either side of the strap. Now we are going to sew the sheath for the string using the lunchbox lining. Here's what mine look like. I made them by cutting strips that look like this and sewing the ends together. Cut out divots like the ones shown so that the sheath can bend more easily. Now we are going to add snaps which connect to the fishing line. First, weave the fishing line through the top half of the snap. Poke a small hole in the top of the mitten. Push the snap through the hole and push the two halves together. You can use pliers to make sure that the snap is securely in place. Make sure that the snap is placed on the front side of the mitten. Next, you're going to sew the sheath onto the mitten. The sheath should go down the front of the hand to the base of the fingers and then run along the back of the hand. This is what I'm showing here. The sheath should also not be attached in any areas where the mitten bends significantly. That's what I'm pointing out. This lower part is the attachment for the motor and should be sewed on after the mechanical portion of the device is made in order to get the correct sizing. You can also add extra straps as needed, like I did in this design. Now you have the mitten portion of the device. For those of you that are using the thumb attachment, I sewed it on just as I did with the other components of the device. You can try it out by pulling the strings. Alright, so let's get started on the electronics portion of the device. There are a lot of skills that go into making this part of the device, such as soldering, uploading a program onto an Arduino, and working with a breadboard. In order to avoid confusion in the written description of making this device, I've linked helpful videos in which other people take time explaining how to do these things. Here are the items that we're going to need for this section: a soldering iron, a motor, resistors, push buttons, motor driver, Arduino, jumper cables, batteries and a battery pack, wires, breadboard, solder, and a micro USB cable. The goal of this section is just to get it such that one button turns the motor left, one button stops the motor, and the other button turns the motor right. To do this, we first have to do some soldering. The wires need to be soldered onto the motor, the headers need to be soldered onto the Arduino and motor driver. Make sure that the pins are soldered in the correct orientation. Jumper wires need to be soldered onto the motor and onto the battery pack. Also, remember to use the links in the written instructions to learn how to do all these things. First, upload the given script onto the Arduino. Again, you can follow the linked video for some more information. This picture shows how you connect everything. Make sure you connect the battery last. If you follow this diagram exactly, it should work once the Arduino has the code uploaded and everything is connected in this way. Now we're going to work on the mechanical portion of the device. You will need cardboard and tape, a coupler and associated components, a motor mount, a guitar tuner, a screwdriver, and the motor that you soldered previously. The first thing that you're going to need to do is remove the plastic portion from the guitar tuner. This can be challenging, but just slowly work away at it at whatever tools you have available to you. Now that that's finished, you're going to connect everything like this. The motor here is going to connect to the coupler. The coupler connects to the guitar tuner, and you can just screw everything together. Mine is already inside its housing so that it holds it in a nice place. You can see that I've also attached this Velcro so that it can connect to the leather portion. Now we can hook it up to the electrical components. Let's see how it works. As you can see, the motor is turning the worm gear just as we expected. This is going to facilitate the opening and closing of the hand. We can now tie the fishing line onto the worm gear, as I'm showing you right here. It can then also connect to the leather because of the housing that you've made out of cardboard. Once you've attached everything, it should work just like it does in this video. Thanks for watching.